There's problems all over the place. If anybody's travelling, they need to do two things. Have a quick look at the National Rail website, which lists yellow and red routes, and your train operators website. Certainly, it's telling us at the minute that there's nothing between Ebbsfleet and St Pancras on Eurostar. No trains to and from London Fenchurch Street until 10:45. Disruption between Glasgow, and so it goes on. Buses between Lancaster and Morecambe. There are problems everywhere, and there's a real perfect storm of appalling weather. We've got heavy rain, snow, wind right across Scotland, Northern England, Wales, heavy rain right along the south coast. There's the lingering strikes effect, and of course, with the annual Christmas engineering. You mix all that together, and it is a toxic mix for people wanting to get around.
So, I mean, I was reading before even this chaos this morning, because it's worth saying that those problems with Eurostar and Southeastern trains are because of flooding in a tunnel beneath the Thames. But even in the days running up to this, we knew that there were going to be problems. And some of the rail companies saying we should expect short notice delays and cancellations across the network. And that always confuses me because, I mean, we have to do a rota here at Times Radio. People know when they're meant to come to work and when they're not, and when their days are off over the festive period. Isn't it the same on the trains?
Of course it is. And, the trains, the railway system is the biggest rostered, timetabled machine in the country, from Land's End to John O'Groats and from Barmouth to Yarmouth, and everything interlocks. And everybody does know where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing. But the short notice cancellations largely comes from things like weather. We are seeing much, much more flooding. I mean, I've been a railway journalist for 40 years, and I've never seen as much flooding. It was pretty rare. And the big problem with flooding, statement of the obvious, it tends to turn the railway into a canal. It's a natural drainage channel. And if the water washes the little stones, the ballast that holds the track in place, out of its place, then trains will derail. And so that's largely where short notice cancellations come from. It can come from staff shortages. It can come with more problems with the freight, with the train fleet, with maintenance and reliability. And let's not forget, this is all in the context of the most anti-rail government I've ever seen, which is really throttling the railway's ability to react, to respond, and to invest properly.
And it's interesting you talk about that as well, because, I mean, we know there are problems with staff shortages. I mean, some rail companies can't even force people to work Sundays, for example, can they? That's always done on goodwill. So if everyone suddenly says, actually, don't fancy it over the Christmas period, that's going to cause problems. But it's interesting you talk about the most anti-rail government you've known. There seems to be a real sense of a loss of trust in the industry between the workers, the train operating companies, the government. And that's all really bad news for the passengers at the end of the day.
It absolutely is. I mean, on the Sunday working, it's a very mixed picture. Some companies across the country negotiated the Sundays into the working week. Just very briefly, it always quite kind of suited both the railways and the unions for Sundays to be dependent on overtime and goodwill, because it meant that the railway companies didn't have to employ as many drivers. But the unions liked it because their members earned overtime. And that works right up until the moment it doesn't, when there's a dispute. And of course, it all then falls apart. And that's proving very difficult to get out of, because government and unions have now locked into what is a largely political battle. And the losers in all this, you are quite right, Chloe, and it incenses me, are the people who pay for all of it. Either through their taxes or their fares, or both if you're a passenger and you're an earner. And they deserve so much better from everyone in this. Just before Christmas, the RAC announced that they were expecting 20 million road journeys over the last 3 or 4 days up to Christmas Eve, 20% more than last year. And that's largely because people are losing faith in the railways. That's a very dangerous thing to do, not least for governments, because it breeds political ill will. The fact that the government are so stupid to be letting this go on and have shown the hand in terms like cancelling HS2, it's the most depressing situation to open a new year that I've ever seen.
Gosh, Nigel, thank you so much. Not great news, but thank you for at least filling us in,
Sorry
Nigel.
about that.
No, you're honest. We like it. Nigel Harris there, presenter of Green Signal, which is a railway podcast.